Severe earthquake rocked Los Angeles County this morning, devastating some areas and killing at least 6 people. Major fires and traffic disruption followed, along with more than a dozen aftershocks.
We'll have a live report from Whittier, the hardest hit city in Los Angeles County, and we'll have a live report from Hollywood as this special edition of the 10 o'clock news focuses on the LA earthquake on this Thursday night, October 1st, 1987.
Live from Channel 2 and first in the Bay Area, this is the award-winning 10 o'clock news, the #1 primetime newscast in the country.
Good evening, I'm Elaine Corral.
And I'm Dennis Richmond. At 42 minutes after 7, for a few terrifying moments this morning, the ground shook violently in the Los Angeles area. When it finally stopped, the nation's second largest city had virtually been brought to its knees by the most powerful earthquake to hit there in 16 years. More than a dozen aftershocks followed as buildings collapsed, gas mains ruptured, and fires, dozens of them, sprang up. Measured at 6.1 on the Richter scale, the earthquake is being blamed for 6 deaths so far. Some were killed by falling debris, some died of sheer fright. The quake was centered along the Whittier Fault in the city of Whittier. The mayor of that town has tonight declared it a disaster area. And though centered in Whittier, buildings collapsed in Pasadena, and the quake was felt in Las Vegas, 300 miles away. As earthquakes go, this did not cause the tremendous damage that could accompany a magnitude 8 or larger quake, or even the major damage that would go with a 7 magnitude. But a 6 magnitude earthquake can still cause severe damage, and this one certainly did. Airports were shut for a while. At Burbank, air traffic controllers ran from the tower when the windows blew out. Some freeways were shut down in the LA area, while overpasses were checked for structural damage. Amtrak held up traffic in and out of the area while roadbeds were inspected, and more than 100 people were injured in addition to the 6 killed. Tonight, geologists say there is a chance, a small chance, that the area could be hit by an aftershock even larger than the original quake before it's all over.
For 6 people caught in the quake, today was the last day of their lives, and in some cases, death came violently as the ground shook. At Cal State LA campus, a young college student was crushed to death when a chunk of concrete fell on her. 21-year-old Lupe Esposito and her sister had just parked their car and were walking away from the parking lot when the quake hit. One witness said, "As I got out of my car, I saw people running and screaming, and I heard a woman yell, 'My sister's under there.' Then the woman started praying." And a construction worker got caught in a major landslide and was buried alive 33 feet underground. A 32-year-old man just taking a shower was hurled to his death out a second-story window after slipping when the building started to sway. A 69-year-old woman was so distraught over the quake, she died of a heart attack while talking to her husband on the phone. He was trying to calm her down. And another woman, 73 years old, got so upset she too suffered a heart attack. Police say just before she died, she called her apartment manager in tears, begging for help.
This was a memorable day for millions of people in the LA area, a frightening day for many, but it was something more for hundreds who suffered tangible effects of the damage. Channel 2 reporter Lloyd LaCuesta spent the day in Southern California and brought back this report.
Los Angeles shook, but it's still standing, and it survived. Although for a while it looked like Los Angeles would become a real-life set for a disaster movie. Columns of smoke rose from 36 structure fires caused by the earthquake. Natural gas lines ruptured, starting close to 70 small fires.
A very horrible noise, the grinding noise of the building. And the only thing I could describe it is when my car was totaled by a semi. It's the only thing near. Probably one of the most horrible experiences of my life.
Women screaming, children crying, men running everywhere, trying to get out.
At least 30 people suffered heart attacks. 3 of them died. This was not a rolling earthquake, but a sudden, violent shake.
We got a large rumbling and shaking of the building. We were about ready to sit down, and we went outside for about 10 seconds, and we seen the trees swaying and the building going.
It was an earthquake strong enough to be felt by thousands of motorists on freeways during the height of the commute rush. An overpass at the intersections of the Garden Grove and Santa Ana freeways sustained severe damage. The overpass was shut down, and a section of the Santa Ana freeway was closed. One motorist says cars were bobbing up and down like boats on choppy seas.
People lost control of their cars. There were quite a few accidents. People spun off to the side of the road. People were out of their cars. They didn't know whether to get under their cars, stay in their cars. They thought that it was going to go over the embankment. And people were just, it was very panicky, and the freeway was at a dead stop.
The hardest hit area in the Southern California earthquake, the town of Whittier, about 20 miles east of Los Angeles. It's also about 5 miles from the epicenter of the earthquake. And Whittier, by the way, his nickname is Quaker City.
We've had several buildings with roofs collapse, windows broken, and of course a lot of debris inside. A lot of the store shops or the merchandise inside fell on the floor.
Authorities sealed off a 12-block area of the so-called Whittier Uptown. These are pre-1930 brick and mortar buildings, pre-earthquake standards. Walls came down, exposing interiors like dollhouses, and debris showered down on the few cars in parking lots. There were no lives lost or major injuries here because the quake hit before the workday had begun, and stores and buildings were empty.
This is the oldest part of Whittier, and one of our buildings is one of the older ones too. It's also a brick building. We're afraid that all the inside is pretty bad.
Enrique and Isidro Vargas were allowed into the devastated area this morning to get their first glimpse of what had happened to their jewelry store. They had seen their shop on a morning newscast, but television and reality are not the same. They invested their life savings in this jewelry store.
Well, at least the building didn't fall down and we can fix this, and none of us were in there and we're alive. And we could start again.
Out in the Whittier neighborhoods, the damage isn't as concentrated. Some houses came through all right, others did not. The couple in this 50-year-old house was sitting in the living room when...
Erratic shake without any warning. No warning this time. It's just very erratic. And we worked our way to the door, and when we got to the door, we found this. And it didn't stop. It just kept coming.
This family is going. Their house is simply unlivable. It jumped off its foundations. The house is separated from the front doorstep, and you have to step down to get into the house. As scary as this looks, imagine being inside the house when it dropped.
And the house just started shaking really hard, so I went to the kids' bedroom door to see where they were. I couldn't find them. They were both under the bed. My baby was in the front bedroom, so I ran and got him, and then we stood in the doorway. And the house continued shaking, and as soon as it stopped, we grabbed our clothes, got dressed, and climbed out the back window of the door.
By late afternoon, there had been some 14 aftershocks of this morning's earthquake, and families were camping out in their front yards. The Gomez family from Mexico is typical of thousands of others in Los Angeles. A home they worked for to get a piece of the American dream is in shambles. They have no earthquake insurance. They're scared about tomorrow.
They have no idea what they're going to do. They're going to take care of the house. The doors are jammed open because, you know, it could be burglarized.
Do they think it's going to happen again?
¿Creen que va a pasar otra vez?
Sí.
Seismologists say what hit today was not the big disastrous earthquake that's been predicted. But for rattled Southern Californians, it was big enough. Lloyd LaQuesta for the 10 o'clock news.
As Lloyd said, the city of Whittier took the worst beating in this morning's earthquake. Our reporter John Fowler is in Whittier right now, standing by with a live report and the latest from that city. John.
Well, Elaine, we're right in the middle of the rubble here. The latest word here is that 30 buildings have now been condemned. And if you want to look behind me, you can see what's left. 300 people evacuated from a 12-block area tonight. No one's being let in. You can see why. Many brick buildings here, unreinforced, came tumbling down, as Lloyd told us. This is still very, very dangerous all around here. This is the back of a church, one of the many buildings here that are severely damaged. There are dozens of homes around here also damaged. No estimate on the dollar damage. Many people are out of their homes tonight, staying with friends or camping out in parks. As we saw tonight, as we drove around through the town, we saw virtually every building damaged in some way. There were signs down. There were boarded up windows everywhere. One big glass company has nothing but plywood out in front. People here are sitting on their doorsteps, not knowing what to do. There's really nowhere to go here. Some of the hotels are filled. The residential hotel here in town has been evacuated. Now, Governor Deukmejian's staff just left here a few minutes ago. The governor is expected back here tomorrow at about 10 o'clock to give us some kind of estimate on what the state can do for us. But for now, Dennis Elaine, that's the story here in Whittier.
John, oftentimes in a situation like that, people are afraid to go back in their homes, and you see people actually camped out on their lawns. Is that in evidence anywhere in Whittier?
You bet it is. There are people who are, as I said, sitting on their doorsteps, really not knowing what to do. They're afraid to go in the house. Some of the people we saw in Lloyd's report are typical of the folks that we're seeing here. One of the major parks in downtown Los Angeles today was filled earlier with people just staying away because they were afraid of the aftershocks. No one really knows what's going to happen next. A lot of people are nervous.
John, we had reports of a lot of aftershocks, at least 12 aftershocks. Have you felt anything since you've been down there?
I haven't felt anything per se. I was in a high-rise building a little while ago, and we were all looking around thinking maybe the next minute we were going to feel something, but really nothing at all. The last aftershock we were told was at 4 o'clock, the last large one, and we haven't felt anything ourselves.
All right, thank you very much, John. That was John Fowler reporting live from Whittier. Dennis?
There is late word that the aftermath of the LA earthquake has taken another life. The victim was riding a motorcycle on Interstate 605 freeway in Norwalk. Police say he lost control of his motorcycle and slid into a Caltrans truck. That truck was being used by workers repairing damage from the earthquake. And as that incident illustrates, the effects from a substantial earthquake linger on, even as the aftershocks continue to frighten people. All day today and into tonight, people in and around Los Angeles who weren't directly affected by the quake had their lives altered in indirect ways. Randy Shandeville is standing by live in Hollywood right now with some of those stories. Randy, what do you have for us?
Well, Dennis, as severe as today's quake was, it really didn't catch people by surprise down here. In fact, they're kind of used to these things. They come to expect them. Not quite so severe, but they do expect them. In fact, down here, they even have an expression for the atmosphere on days like today. They call it earthquake weather. Big quakes always seem to come on hot days. They always seem to happen early in the morning, and today was no exception. It was the kind of LA day most people want to run and hide from. Hot, muggy, and smoggy. But today, out in the nearly 100-degree heat, people lined residential sidewalks and just stood there. Tonight, in Echo Park near downtown LA, families set up barbecues. All say that because of the aftershocks, they are afraid to go back inside.
Another earthquake can come back or something, because that was very bad, the first one. That's checked all over, and everything broke down inside. All the TV broken apart, and we're afraid to stay inside.
You're afraid to go back in your house?
It's because we have a lot of kids in there, and the walls started falling off.
Though only a few freeways were closed because of damage here, highways in the whole LA basin were affected. They were empty. People apparently afraid to go out. It was the same story tonight in downtown LA. Right now, it's 5:20, and we're in LA's equivalent of San Francisco's financial district. But there is no rush hour. Elevators in the skyscrapers broke down, so most people, reluctant to hike 30 or 40 stories, went home early. Others never came downtown after being rocked by the quake while driving to work.
A lot of people got out of their cars and looked under their cars.
On the freeway?
Yeah, they did. I think they were either thinking that that there was an earthquake and looking to see if the freeway was cracked.
Were you scared?
No, oh no, no, I have Jesus. When you have the Lord, you don't really get frightened, you know, because that's what he says for you not to be afraid.
Now, what about downtown? This is usually more crowded than this?
Oh, yes, I'm coming from work. I'm coming from Sherman Oaks, and I have to, you know, kind of push it to get over here to get my bus.
Normally you push and shove, not tonight.
Oh, push, oh, yeah, that's when I said it's like a ghost town.
The quake squashed plans for members of the...
Then Tom got the